Ladies and gentlemen, if you've lived in the Western world and you keep any eye on the news, I don't think it's too much to say that things have been a little bit in your face lately. But despite all that, we still have local issues in our own countries. And one of the ones we've been facing in New Zealand is that despite it being this wealthy Western nation, we have seen an erosion to the quality of our public healthcare services and the quality of the work for the workforce there. And despite the fact that we had a bunch of people clapping on the side of the streets and that most people genuinely understand that nurses are a key backbone to our country, they had to go on strike again due to the government offering them a terrible pay offer. This is the response we have to it. Now, before I show this response, I want to remind you that we live in an MMP country, which means that our smaller parties have the ability to form interesting coalition deals to allow the bigger parties to get over the line to govern. And the ACT Party, who's always benefited from MMP, due to the fact that they can always secure a seat, almost guaranteed by winning Epsom, they managed to negotiate their leader to become the Deputy Prime Minister. So first, I just wanted to show what the Deputy Prime Minister's response was to this.
Talk about nurses, they're obviously going on strike today, David, and they're getting less than inflation in terms of a pay offer from the government, and yet we've got those people on the boards getting up to 80% more. It's not a great look, is it? Do you admit that it's not a great look?
Well, if all you're worried about is the look, then you can have that argument, but I'll just make a couple of points. One is that I think a lot of people may not appreciate quite where nursing has got to in the last few years. So it's 127,000. You know, if you're coming in as a starting nurse, it's 75,000. These have been serious uplifts in recent years. Now we're not doing as much because, frankly, we're in a pretty tough fiscal situation. And unlike the previous government, we know we can't just keep borrowing. So is that tough? Yep. Does it look bad? Yep. But that's actually facing a reality that was ignored for far.
That's right. He knows it looks bad. And to put a bit of context to this was an interview panel on the New Zealand Herald the other day. And it's kind of like this left versus right thing, because we have the ACT Party on the further end of the right, and then we have on our political spectrum, and then we have the Green Party on the further end of the left. And that was his attitude towards it, that, yep, we know it looks bad. But luckily, the National Party managed to ensure that one of their own politicians could be the negotiator with the nursing union. And that guy is Simeon Brown, one of our, I'll admit it, he's a little bit outdated now. He's kind of like New Zealand's ChatGPT 3.5, because he always gives quite predictable answers and gets a bit repetitive. But this was his repetitive response to the strikes.
Union striking does not help patients. Ultimately, they should get back around the negotiating table rather than walking off the job.
That's right. Why don't you stop causing everyone to suffer and get around the negotiating table? And what's remarkable about a response like this is it really goes to show just the lack of nuance that they're even portraying when it comes to responding to a crisis, because obviously this is in response to negotiations that didn't go well, or that with the accumulation of negotiations over time still hasn't led to good outcomes for our nursing sector. So, you know, this government is under a bit of suspicion that they are trying to purposely erode this to allow the privatisation of healthcare to boom, because our Prime Minister always says this when he gets asked.
And why wouldn't we use that capacity? Because when you're lying on your bed looking up at the ceiling, you don't really care whether it got done in a private system or public hospital, because we pay for it anyway.
Imagine.
And he frames it like, well, you're not going to care if it's public or private if your relative's dying, and kind of yet again zaps out all the nuance to the debate.
And then you get this ideological conversation about, you can't use resources sitting there in the private hospital system.
So that was the response to the nurses' strike by our leadership. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe.